I would like to introduce you to Lauren Hogan, Director of Talent Acquisition and Advisory from Fruition Recruitment, who will be presenting today's masterclass. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank and welcome Lauren and Fruition Recruitment, who recently came on board as Geelong Chamber's newest gold partner. Now, Lauren, we are over to you, ready for the masterclass.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Emma, and good morning, everyone. We'll just get set up here so that you can see all the slides that I've prepared. Don't want to deprive you of those. Thanks so much, everyone. And yes, for those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Lauren Hogan, so I head up Fruition Recruitment here in Geelong. So, dearly frustrated, yes, we've gathered here this morning because recruitment right now is a really hard slog, right? We want it to get easier, and it's probably really the toughest now that it's been, certainly in my time at least. And look, 2023 organisations are facing really historic challenges. So this morning we're going to step through 5 of those. But first, if like me, you've been recruiting in recent times, I know that this quote will resonate with you too. It's times like these, you learn to live again. It's times like these, you give and give again. It's times like these, you learn to love again. And it's times like these, time and time again. That's obviously Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, but in all seriousness, according to the ABS, a whopping, whopping 1/3 of employers expect skills shortages to really affect them. And look, that was actually going off data back in June last year. So it's highly likely it's more like half of employers now. The RBA said just this month that there's almost as many job vacancies at the moment as there are unemployed people. So some employers say, look, when the pool of unemployed people is as small as it is now, it takes quite a long time to find staff, and the protracted hiring effort can cause a whole host of problems. Okay, so this morning we're going to cover defending against candidate shortages, preparing for people first employer branding, reversing declining employee engagement, understanding current candidate motivations, managing the great exhaustion, and we'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A as well. So don't hesitate to shoot them through. We are covering quite a few big topics this morning. Some of them will be a bit quick fire. So whether you send through a question or want to pick up the conversation with me offline, you're very welcome to do that. So most important, what are you going to get out of this morning? Look, I'm hoping you'll get a better understanding of just what the hell's going on in the current recruitment and labour market. You'll get some pretty actionable tips that you can run with right away. And I've also put together a 2023 style job advertisement template that I'm offering complimentary if that appeals to anyone. And you get to listen to my news reporter wannabe voice this morning. Lucky you, so you'll have to bear with me. So I hope you've got a good latte or decaf oat milk long black mocha venti or whatever's going on, and let's get into it. Defending against candidate shortages. So first, where the hell are all the candidates? Sometimes, look, the most obvious answer can be the right one. Aside from some minor variables, which we'll cover in a minute, in essence, at a Geelong level, with some exceptions, there are about the same number of people around now as there ever were. It's just that this has really ended up being a pandemic of perspective, and some people have found themselves with both a choice and a voice. So maybe people just aren't picking up what you're putting out now. That, together with the noise out there now, online this and online that, there's subscriptions and streaming and notifications and emails and emails and emails. So it could also be that maybe you're just not cutting through the noise, or maybe you're just not getting in front of the right eyeballs. If you can't, catch with the bait that you're using, cast a wider net or use different bait. Other factors to consider in defending against candidate shortages: There can also and should be a focus on retaining your current employees. First and foremost, it's going to assist you in not having to go to market. In order to hold on to your people, a focus on some internal succession planning or tailored learning and development programs is seeing people retaining their roles. So investing in your people. Actually engaging with your employees and not just focusing on the new hires as far as the really shiny onboarding program, but rather than just focusing on the new to the business, those that are obviously already there and internal. And also to shore up against needing to go to market, maybe creating communities of expertise within the business, even internal mentoring programs or even job rotation can go away into making sure that you're not really limited when you do need to hire. Very much so, you need to have an engaging employer value proposition. You're going to hear a lot of chatter about the EVP and the employer value proposition. If you don't know what it is, you need to get on that today. So that needs to be something that's really clearly defined, and your existing employees should know what that is, as well as those who might be looking to join your business. And if you do have to go to the market, look, just go about it in the right way. To ensure that you get the maximum attention from candidates, really understanding the candidate market that you're going towards. A one-size-all-fits-all approach won't cut it anymore. And on that note, it really is time to overhaul the job advert. When was the last time that you looked at yours? In this digital age, it's all about marketing and competing for attention. It's also the age of information and choice. Ensure that your advert is also, SEO optimized so that you're actually found as well. If you're searching for, high level expertise, have you referenced specialist or strategist or expert or even manager in your ad copy? Thinking of what something would actually punch into search engines or even into Seek if they were actively looking. But also, understanding that improving the candidate application experience is very much what candidates are seeking. They're from click or how to apply, and you're engaging ad copy right through to submitting an application. That candidate experience should be as easy as possible with the lowest barriers to submit. A lot of candidates are doing that on mobile devices. So again, making it really clear and friendly. If your application instructions are to go to a different web browser or to already submit information that's on the CV and the old, re-input, that's enough to be really disengaging for a lot of candidates who might be thinking to apply to your role. And the other aspect to consider is that in this current era of information and empowered information, real transparency is what's being sought from candidates. It's no longer a case of, we don't talk about each other's salaries, or we don't advertise the salary because, gosh, we don't want someone just applying for the money. I mean, that should come in your vetting. That should come in your interviewing to work out through those assessments if someone's only financially motivated. But otherwise, it should be really transparent and it should be right up front. So normally, or historically, the job advert has been all about the company, all about the job, the very long list of things that we want from the candidate. And then at the bottom, there's often very little reference to the benefits or the salary. And now that needs to be right up the top as far as what's in it for them. Offering the best benefits and perks that you can, for sure. It's a current conversation, from small businesses right through to the large ones. How much do I need to be giving candidates? Do I now need to effectively be trying to buy back their post-COVID lifestyle? I get it. It's a tricky one. And expectations have increased, but also, stripping it right back. Do you have the radio on at your office or your workplace? Does the drinks cart bust out at 3 p.m. on a Friday? Put that stuff in your advertising and make it part of your value proposition, as far as a testament to your culture internally. Do you have free on-site parking? That's still something that would appeal to someone. In today's market, there's no more kind of where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's now more like where do you see yourself in 2 years? You're probably lucky to get 2 years out of someone in a permanent position. So also consider that, yes, while salaries have increased, that it might be worth you increasing your expectations as well and spending maybe the extra money to get someone where the expectation is they're going to hit the ground running. It's no longer the case that you're going to spend 2 years grooming that person or mentoring that person if after 2 years in the current market they're going to be moving on. So yes, this has been a pandemic of perspective for most. It's really been a seismic change in how people view work and the meaning that work brings to their lives. The ripple effect that we are seeing here in Australia and more locally in Geelong has really been less big quit and more better fit. And workers are really just insisting on improved working conditions. And that has meant some candidate abandonment of some really high burnout roles. Property management, retail, fast food, nursing and teaching have all been really affected. So look, where else is everybody? Because there definitely are some workers missing, right? Yes, there are still some that are now not in the market that were previous to COVID. Obviously, without a doubt, COVID has really affected talent pools. The lockdowns, rolling lockdowns, closing and reopening of country borders has all negatively affected candidate pools. Casual and temp workers, for example, a lot of them have now moved into part-time or full-time roles so that they can get the benefits of some paid leave, which, they really missed out on during COVID. So, there go some of your potential applicants, depending on what role you're hiring for. What about school leavers? Yep, there aren't many of those around at the moment either. 2 years of no schoolies and no gap year has meant that Gen Z have got a lot of extra money in the bank and extra itchy feet. So they're now spending that traveling and backpacking in really large numbers. So they're not going to be in the market applying to your jobs either. No international students has particularly affected the temp and casual markets and sectors like hospitality. But also a lot of young baby boomers decided to move into retirement early, either through COVID or post-COVID. And then that's affected hiring in a waterfall way, where there's been internal promotion to that seniority and then pulled on available market candidates for those more junior and entry-level positions. The pandemic of perspective has also, spurred on others who've now chosen to take that plunge or take advantage of some available grants and funding and are deciding to dive headfirst into that startup or business idea. So I guess, there goes more people who might have otherwise been tempted to apply for your job advert. A lot of employers have actually also done more hiring than they might have previously, just because of the times that we're now in, because direct to consumer and digital first online is very much now the order of the day. Businesses are having to really flex their online presence to stay competitive, and those who might have outsourced their technology or even like their marketing pre-pandemic are now wanting to invest in-house and build the A team. storytelling is really paramount. So they're also hiring more people to amass those internal teams, whereas, previously they might have outsourced to agencies. Also contributing to candidate shortages is the fact that 48% of candidates feel that looking for a job is more overwhelming since COVID. There's also quite a lack of confidence driving this reluctance to take a leap at the moment, especially given current interest rate rises. And, counter offers is another factor that's affecting talent pools. Counter offers are getting really competitive, and it makes sense. Employers understand that it would probably cost much more to re-recruit in the current market than it would be to perhaps add in some sweeteners or revise, someone's remuneration if they're thinking of leaving. And a lot of employees are deciding to stay put and accept those counter offers. So, yes, there are still quite a few areas that have adversely affected candidate pools and contributed to the current shortages, but so too are candidates being a bit more discerning with their next move. And there are still some things within that mix that employers could do to help mitigate some of that. If it's the case that you are still hiring within hospitality and it's a casual position, there's no hope for you. It might be the case that you just need to really understand the candidate market and the pressures that they're experiencing now and their motivations, and building in 5 days of paid leave to alleviate that concern is something you could do. So on to preparing for people first employer branding. According to Gartner, 82% of employees now say it's important that their organisations see them as a whole person rather than just simply an employee. We need to understand that, people first is the new normal, and the post-pandemic expectation is that employers are going to be investing in, valuing and rewarding their people. Look, this should be reflected in obviously the employer value proposition again, but also really purposefully connecting each worker, regardless of their seniority, to the overall strategic objectives of the business, so that there is that connectivity. Having that really awesome candidate experience is also part of this employer branding exercise. And even considering internally that other workers like contractors or casual workers and part-time workers might also need a refocus or an address from this what can often feel like a two-tier workforce. So some efforts there as well go a long way. Otherwise, organisations should also be considering in these times that they share best practice with their supply chain partners, their vendors, their service providers. The expectation from candidates is that if it is the case that you're professing to be caring or be focused on certain areas, whether that's sustainability or whether that's diversity, that your other partners are similarly aligned. On reversing declining employee engagement, a new survey shows that employees were less engaged in the workplace during 2022. Gallup reports that employee engagement fell to 32% last year from 34% in 2021 and 36% in 2020. So the survey shows that the biggest contributors to the year after year decline has been a lack of clarity about expectations, fewer opportunities for development, and employees' increased feelings that their opinions were either not being sought out and or just not heard. To reverse the trend, Gallup suggests employers can embrace hybrid working models for remote employees, but also linking in with on-site days. that they can actively engage on an individual basis, coming back to a lot of personalisation, focusing on the employee's well-being is also right up there. And on, the era of personalisation, it's really important that employers understand that the flexible expectation of work now, facilitating flexible and hybrid working conditions is one thing, but employers also need to understand that needs to give rise to adopting online tools that still foster team culture and engage their teams and engage across departments if they're not having those serendipitous interactions in the workplace. There's also been some really great data and research that has shown that employees now more than ever are relying on and expecting clear working policies, which, will then set the foundation for and impact things like office planning and utilisation, better designed workspaces, and even flexible working spaces that will also go away to combating, potential loneliness from working from home, as well as, considering perhaps workspace allowances to improve employee engagement and ensure that there's equity against if people are working remotely. The other way is touching on that we'll go through in a bit is recognising this generation of exhaustion and this current time of exhaustion, and we'll touch more on that later. Now to understanding current candidate motivations. So yes, more than ever before, candidates have vocalised their needs and their changing expectations as a collective. Their motivations can be summarised as really just requiring a more proactive approach to their well-being from their employer. How do you know what that means for your people? Ask them. Conduct employee engagement surveys or get to know your people on a one-on-one basis. Don't reward performance with tickets to the tennis to people who would much rather go to the movies. Make sure that it is tailored in that way. Making sure that the perks that you offer as an employer or even within the specific job itself are really clear in the job advertisement. Developing an actual understanding of your candidate market. It's not a one-size-all approach. It's not just regardless of who we need within our company. It's the same manner of going about hiring. It needs to really differ depending on the role that you're recruiting. LinkedIn data shows that remote jobs, which make up around about 20% of all jobs on LinkedIn at the moment, actually receive 50% of all job applications. So, it's something where I know that I feel like there's been a bit of whiplash locally in Geelong for sure with employers on the topic of flexible working and working from home. I feel like it's going to probably get to an 80-20 where people will have a day working from home. But, it's very much the case that employers that are resistant to adopting any flexible working conditions or opening up that conversation with employees that are seeking more flexibility in their roles are really just holding on to outdated strategies that might have previously made sense, and it's going to affect their bottom line at the end of the day. Hybrid working has really become part of the modern work culture. And so it's important that that's part of our conversation. Other factors to understand candidate motivations, touching on those, that clear communication, transparency, and modernised policies and reference tools there, some framework. Also, workplace learning, that's one thing that has fallen away in these times where costs have come into focus. internal training and development programs or conference attendance or training spend per head has been one thing that has suffered, and our candidates are telling us that they want that to get back on the table. Diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging have also very much been receiving more visibility, and so that also plays into candidate motivation. One thing to consider, we celebrate, we buy gifts, and we hold team lunches for people leaving our businesses, but do we celebrate people who are choosing to come into our business? An example of a nice touch for a new hire that I've come across is on the next slide. This one here is just a note that a successful candidate received and went viral, as far as some nice flattery in there, saying that they were blown away in the interview and can't wait to welcome them, but a really nice personalised touch. Next up, managing the great exhaustion. So what is it? First, the great exhaustion is really large numbers of the workforce feeling an absolute overwhelming feeling of emotional exhaustion, like there's nothing left in the tank. So look, this in itself might lead to candidates or employees leaving the workforce or taking on a more junior position for a bit of a break, or just trying to hold on in their current gig. So that then means that these exhausted people are probably not going to be your applicants either. So that's further adding to the tight labour markets. And for the most part, bloody fair enough. It's not just workers, it's employers too. It's you and me. It's, on the back of just, a global pandemic, plus remote working, plus homeschooling and complete global chaos. Together with the cost of living crisis and with rising inflation, it's all really beginning to take its toll. This uncertainty is causing mass employee stress, burnout, and increasing mental health concerns. Otherwise, it's important to also consider and reflect that during COVID and even now, many high performers were promoted to management positions because of those early boomer retirements that we touched on, and also likely in an attempt to retain them and or to be part of that counter offer. And that's at the same time that organisations have been willing to take a shot at hiring maybe less experienced candidates for positions because of the talent shortages. So that's a really difficult environment, and it needs focus and realisation from employers. 60% of hybrid employees say that their manager is their most direct connection to the company culture. But, people managers are struggling to balance their employee expectations of purpose, flexibility, and career opportunities with other performance pressure from senior leaders, or if it is the case that it's a business owner. Gartner research shows that to successfully create intentional interactions among employees, which benefits and helps mitigate this exhaustion, employers should focus on 3 key elements: employee choice and autonomy, a clear structure and purpose, and a sense of levity and fun. Best practice is to build a culture of acceptance around mental well-being, offer leave solutions for struggling employees, implement some strict work-life balance policies so that there is an expectation that there is switch-off time and time to decompress, promoting overall well-being and healthy habits, creating a more inclusive workplace for people with disabilities, focusing on even, building financial acumen, financial coaches. Some employers are offering benefits and education. Organisations are also valuing emotional intelligence, and developing soft skills like empathy and active listening should also be part of the leadership development and plans and training which will have a ripple effect across the business. Employers do have now a pretty big responsibility to carry a duty of care in supporting workers and providing them opportunity to better their mental health and their work-life balance. And it's mutually beneficial. The happiest workers are going to be the most professionally fulfilled and the most engaged, and it's a reciprocal benefit to care for your people. In this current market as well, where candidate shortages are rife, avoid adding extra responsibilities to your internal team in lieu of recruitment, or to try and put off recruitment because it's tough out there at the moment. Avoiding recruiting could really harbour resentment among your team and increase burnout, and likely then fallout, which will affect, those overall attrition rates and mean you're going to market more often. A 2022 Gartner survey of nearly 3,500 employees found that when organisations help employees build connections intentionally, their employees are 5 times as likely to be on a high-performing team and 12 times as likely to feel connected to their colleagues. Let's check out an example.
This is what my director said when I asked to take yesterday off because I was in the ER the night before. I'm going to read the brief email of what I said. Hey, I was in the ER for a long time last night for chest pain that I've been having all weekend. Everything is okay. I just need to take care of myself. So I'm going to take the day off to rest. I most likely will check in here and there. See you tomorrow. Response. Good grief, Chloe. Please, all caps, take time to take care of yourself. Highlighted in yellow. Take as much time as you need and try not to worry about work. I know it's hard, but your health is paramount. The circus will always be here even when we're not. Do take care. Now that is a great director. You would be so surprised how much your employees will do for you if you show that you care about them. Granted, I am a really hard worker, I'm great at my job, and we've created really good trust between each other. So if you're a manager or director, what do you do when your employee calls in sick? Do you support them?
Food for
This is what my
thought.
director said when I asked.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of the masterclass, but I wanted to share some bonus tips. Some tips on channels to access candidates. Firstly, get on social media. Don't let perfect get in the way of the good. Something I'm working on for myself as well, but just make a post, learn as you go. It's all about engagement, and social media is much more forgiving than traditional mediums have been. Facebook and Instagram in particular, although TikTok is really on the rise. If you're already writing a great advert, which you should really be focusing on doing, then anchor that to your socials posting. Most of the work will already be done for you. Did you also know that, if you create a job listing on your company website, for example, bots for Indeed, Career One, and Jora will pull your advertisement through to their platforms at no charge to you. So, increasing getting out there in front of the right eyeballs. Although expensive, using sites like LinkedIn for proactive sourcing can be, profitable, or can yield good candidates, although it's really time consuming, and there is you got to sort through the high number of applicants to get to the good ones. If advertising on Seek, certainly worth considering that you need to maximize your spend by using credits. So when you put up a Seek advertisement, you're assigned a certain number of credits that you can spend on Seek's back end and searching their online candidate database. Other ways to access candidates, sharing your social media advertising to actual specific Facebook groups is a good one that can widen the audience and encourage post engagement. There are a large number of groups, really almost for all audiences. There's even one in Geelong, for example, that's chefs of Geelong and the Surf Coast. So sharing specific job vacancy social media posts to groups on social media can also further boost that engagement. You can consider approaching Deakin Uni or the board and, discuss connecting with graduate talent. It might be the case that you offer to speak to graduating classes and actually having those conversations. And then it might mean that you're linked with graduating talent as well. You can also use and leverage your people, ask your employees for referrals for candidates. It might be the case that they know someone that knows someone, and that you can also get them to share your advertising content, even if that is also on socials. In summary, don't only give consideration to the candidates that you need to hire, but also on retaining the employees that you have. Ensure that you have policies in place to support the new ways of working in line with changing employee expectations. Invest to improve internal effectiveness in building employee connections and organisation inclusion. Increase efforts to connect the work that employees do to the organisation's overall values, mission, strategic objectives. Advertise roles on social media, go to the people, and revamp your candidate attraction strategy, including perks, mental health support, reworking that job advertisement to appeal to today's market. Overall making your candidate application experience the very best it can be with the lowest barriers to apply possible. A realistic wish list is also really important. Get it down to the bare bones and then vet on culture throughout interview. And have a healthy salary. Understand that you're not going to be able to hire someone today at the same price or cost than you did 5 years ago. Market conditions have shifted, so have housing prices. It's just the reality, and it might then change your expectations as to how they can hit the ground running or how you can leverage that ROI and have that focus. So I know that I mentioned Q&A. I know that there's a bit of a chat function to share some content there for questions. Happy to take questions, but also happy to pick up a conversation offline with anyone. And that's me done for this morning. Thanks so much, everyone. And look, it's a lot to digest. There's so many facets, there's so much going on. It's such tough going. Sometimes at the moment I'm like, why did I make this my whole career? This is what I do every day. I specialize in the hiring vertical within the galaxy that is HR. And it can be really tough going. It can be so tiring and draining, not only, looking for applicants, but I've also had it from candidates. It is quite candidate short at the moment, but candidates are still, they've moved through this period of burnout. If they are mustering up the courage to apply for another role now, there is still a lot of anxiousness that's coming through. And I get that from a candidate's perspective, it can seem exhausting as well to apply. There are still applications that require the key selection criteria or a cover letter, in order for the candidate to get through the process. They also need to not be just stock standing, sending their CV through. That needs to have some tailoring as well. So there's effort required on both parts, and I get that it's really tiring. But I would say that for the most part, if people are applying to your advertisement and they've made an effort to tailor that, to really understand that the list of wants and needs, or the wish list, versus really what you require. Because if someone does feel like there's a synergy there, or they're attracted to the fact that your current stance in the market is really attractive to them as an employee, then there might be a culture fit there. There might be some movement on whether they're able to be started at full remuneration, or whether there's something, or part of the conversation is to, going through those steps with someone, because there might still be worthwhile candidates to consider, that even if they don't tick all the boxes.
And you said to learn that if you take one thing away today is to get on Google and type in EVP and then sort of
Yes,
how
everyone needs to know their employer value proposition. It's basically perks, but it's not just perks. And I speak with employers every day, and I get it. Employers are saying, how far does my hand have to be, giving to candidates, and why is post-COVID now seemingly just about the perks rather than about good old-fashioned hard work, or striving to get further in a career, and working to receive a salary is a perk. You're being paid to work. So I had one employer say, do I really need to do a song and dance for every candidate that's applying, or every employee? And I would just say that, understanding that perks can really just speak for your culture. Like I said, it's as simple as having the radio on, or having casual Fridays, or they're still technically considered perks because they're sweeteners about what we experience when we get up in the morning. But ultimately, some empathy in the current environment goes a long way. Understanding that all of us have gone through a lot, and that if it means that the employer is leading the charge with extending some of that empathy, I don't think that's such a bad thing.
Yeah, so for employers in industries where on-site employment is the only option, do you see the need to increase salaries or conditions to compete with work from home roles, or a great culture, leave, perks, etc. enough?
Great question. Thanks, Grace. So just to read, so for employers in industries where on-site employment is the only option, do they then have to compete with salaries and conditions to compete with work from home roles? So I would say that I'll speak specifically to the Geelong market. There are very few, if any, full-time work from home roles. Even if you're able to, or even if current employers are giving some work from home flexibility, it's like I said, it's kind of snapped back to an 80-20. So it's generally speaking only 1 to 2 days that they're working from home. And for employees that can't do that, or that they might be within healthcare, for example, or they need to be on the ground, I don't think that there necessarily needs to be a focus or a reflection of what is the value of someone working from home, and how do we build that in to an on-site employees value offering. But I guess it's about acknowledging that if that isn't an aspect of their work that they can enjoy, that there are other aspects of their work. So absolutely, great culture, leave, and perks are more than enough. And I have on the polar end of that scale, I've been supporting a number of employers in bringing back more of a focus into working from the office more than they had been. And I think that there's been a real a sort of delayed reaction about how things have been affected in the quick, let's all go mobile and work from home. It's been a real cost to culture and engagement. And so I think that by and large, your competitors, others in the industry, are really only going to be working on a 1 a week type arrangement for working from home. But it certainly needs to become part of your employer value proposition, to understand that there needs to be other considerations to why those employees are happy to work each day and throw back the covers and get out of bed as enthusiastically as possible. I hope that answers that.
Very good. Does anyone have any other questions?
I knew there'd be a risk that I'd run short on time because I talk so fast. But hopefully, if you did have the full 90 minutes blocked out in your diaries, then make a way into being kind to yourself in this era of great exhaustion, and spend the next half an hour getting an extra coffee or something for your day. Would happily have a chat offline if there's any other questions that occur to people later in the day as all this is sort of marinating.
Yep, that'd be great. No worries. Well,
Great.
thank you everyone for coming along, and thank you to Lauren, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. Thanks. Bye.